Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Your favorite local grocery stores like Kroger, Ralph's, Fred Meyer, and more are now delivering on Uber Eats. Get 40% off your order of fresh, quality ingredients. Whether you just got home to an empty fridge or suddenly got a craving to whip up something new, you can get everything you need delivered in as little as 25 minutes. Get 40% off your order with code Kroger2026. Plus, members get $0 delivery fees. Order now on Uber Eats. Orders of $30 or more save up to $25. Ends 4/30/26. See app for details.
Walmart Business is in the business of helping your business. Regardless of whether you're building bridges, building spreadsheets, or building lesson plans. Ooh, that looks fun. Walmart Business can help save you time, money, and hassle so you can focus on what you're building instead of what your supply closet is missing. In short, we take care of business so you can do more with yours. We're the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
Want to make the most of your tax refund? File with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They help you get your biggest refund, and then we help you do more with it. With a personalized plan designed to help you hit your money goals. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Cats, this ad is for you. Has your human ever called you picky, persnickety, choosy? If so, Perfect Bistro Cat Food is for you. With ingredients like wild-caught tuna and pasture-raised lamb, tantalizing textures, and delectable flavors that meet even the most discerning cat standards. You're not picky, you're just perfectionists. Perfect Bistro, mealtime perfection for every cat. Have your human visit perfectbistro.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another off-season edition of the Kelly Green Hour. It's been a while. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. It's been close to a month, wow, since we were last with you, but now we're going to start getting back into the swing of things with the draft less than 1 month away. Connor, what's going on, bud?
Well, as you know, there's been a bit of a cold coming through my house, so we've been working through the illnesses that come with daycare. But outside of that, I agree. It's good to be back, and I think we're going to be live the next at least 5 weeks or 4 weeks, because we got the positional needs episode tonight. We have NFL first round mock draft. We got Eagles only mock draft, and then we got some reaction episodes afterwards. So can't wait. This is the best time of year.
And also, if any big moves happen, before we jump into what the latest happening in Eagles country, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. And if you're joining us live, like Adam's Exploits is, let us know your thoughts on the offseason thus far. My fan is on, buddy. I don't know if I've ever turned it off. Yeah, the big BG announcement. That was such... Whatever. I mean, he's probably going to come back, but it'll probably be like last year. He won't come back until like close to season or in season. We'll see. I guess it depends on the draft. All right, Connor, I don't want to talk about it because I think it's a bunch of baloney, but I guess we should talk about the 2 hit pieces that came out on Jalen Hurts. And yes, people are going to say they're not hit pieces. Yes, they are. They're hit pieces. And Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler claiming to have up to 12 sources. I bet you more than half of them sources are people that aren't even in the organization anymore. And I bet you prime example number 1, you know who it is? Kevin Patullo. Like, I know he's got a job in Miami, but he wants to try to, get his name back into the light for potential OC positions and potential head coaching positions down the line. So, he wants to, try to clear his name of any wrongdoing that happened in Philly on the offensive side of the ball last year. So, yeah, and look, and then Jeff McLean today said in his article was saying that from the top down, from Jeffrey Lurie down, like there's people having issues with Jalen. Well, I don't know. I heard him at the owners' meetings. He didn't sound like somebody that, had issues with Jalen. And I don't remember going back to 2018, 2019, whatever, when there was all this stuff coming out about Carson, and you can remind me if I'm wrong, Connor, but I don't think Jeffrey Lurie spoke highly like that on Carson Wentz, the way he spoke highly or is speaking highly on Jalen Hurts.
No, I don't recall. I mean, there were probably circumstances and situations where he defended, Carson Wentz and spoke well, or I don't know about highly, but spoke well of Carson Wentz. I mean, we know the Philadelphia Eagles are an organization that really toes the line with the media. I posted on our X feed that, it feels like they have some really good media trainers in the building for, how they want people to speak, what they want people to say, how they want to say it. But I agree. I mean, you can call it what you want. At the end of the day, a lot of this stuff, to me, after doing it for a little while, there can be different perspectives and both be correct. I mean, at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts is a winner. He wins games. He does really well. Do I think that there's some people who are jealous of him? Absolutely. I mean, this was a guy who wasn't supposed to succeed at this level to the degree that he's succeeding. So there's obviously people who are going to be jealous of what Jalen Hurts has been able to do, whether or not you think that it's the byproduct of how he is built, which is how he's jobbed to build the roster the way he's built it, or whether you think it's a byproduct of Jalen Hurts and what he's been able to do and what he's capable of doing in specific circumstances. To me, at the end of the day, we know that, with the way that he is, he probably can be tough to coach. There's certain things within it that are undeniable that we have heard said multiple times before. We know by the amount he audibles that sometimes he likely doesn't like the play call. It's not always he's changing the play call because of what he sees. He likely doesn't like the play call. We've seen a lot of this stuff. We understand that some of this is true, and we absolutely understand that some of this stuff probably comes from people who are no longer in the building. And I also think, and I said it on our X feed as well through the past 48 hours and the piece coming out, it's difficult to say how exactly Tim McManus approached this, because if he says he has 12 sources, all 12 of these sources did not come and just hit bad things on Jalen Hurts. Maybe one source said something, and then how does Tim McManus then go and feed into that with the way that he questions other people? And then you also see, it was reposted recently about what Jahan Dotson said about the leadership of Jalen Hurts. And you go back to that, that point in the article where it says players notice, but yet there's very few that have left the Philadelphia Eagles organization with Jalen Hurts there and spoke ill of him. So, I mean, there's a lot of different perspectives on this. There's a lot of people who hate that you're anonymous. I mean, I get it that people are going to be anonymous because look at Kevin Patullo. Kevin Patullo got his house egged because of how bad of a play caller he was and stuff. So you never know what's going to happen in Philadelphia. You can so easily find people's addresses and where they live now. Nobody wants to put their name to what they're saying, but I do think that, It's nothing overly new came up. It was just a lot of things were said in a different way. And there's people who I can't remember. I was listening to somebody talking earlier today, and they were like, the way that he is as a leader and the way that he carries himself is going to rub people the wrong way and is going to make people think differently of him and speak differently of him than some people who think completely otherwise. I basically said it on our X feed. If you ask 50 people in the Eagles building, I bet you they're going to be split almost 50-50 on their opinion on Jalen Hurts. And it is rare that you're ever going to see a full building ever fully agree on any type of statement that's made or opinion that's made.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be 100% liked. It doesn't happen. Like Tom Brady wasn't 100% liked. It wouldn't shock me if Patrick Mahomes wasn't 100% liked in KC. Like, it's very rare when you're going to have the backing of everybody in the building. We know it's not going to happen. The one thing that was said that really irked me was that he's not a coachable guy. I find that hard to believe. His dad's a coach. He coached him up. He played for Nick freaking Saban. And look, I get it. He ended up losing his job his junior year. I think it was his junior year, sophomore, junior year. But like, he still worked and improved because he went in for an injured Tua and was able to lead Alabama in the SEC championship game. So like, I find it very hard to believe that he is not a coachable guy. Like, that's something that very much irks me. I also like, and then he went, to Oklahoma and was second in the Heisman race. So like, something has to give. Are there certain things he doesn't like to do? Yeah, every quarterback doesn't like to. Joe Burrow doesn't like to go under center because he doesn't like to turn his back to the defense. Do you see his teammate? Like, do you see people complaining about him? And the fact that like, winning is, and we mentioned this a lot the last couple of years, winning isn't enough. Like, they want to win a certain way. And because Jalen Hurts led offense doesn't win by throwing for 70,000 yards, people are mad about that. Who the hell cares? Just because they won the Super Bowl in 2024 season, by mainly running the ball, that doesn't mean that Jalen didn't affect the offense. He obviously did. So like, all of that is a pain in the ass to hear, to read. Like, anonymous, I feel like anonymous sources are weak. Like, come out, put your name to it, approach Jalen like, it doesn't have to be in the public. Approach him like a man. Like, if you have problems with him, don't be spouting all these stuff, that your opinions to a reporter who can put it in to this 70,000 word article to make everybody read. Like, it makes zero sense to me. Again, Jalen's not going to be 100% liked. Is Jalen the perfect quarterback? No. As Adam's exploit says, Jalen is somewhere between the 6th and 12th best quarterback. He has his strengths and weaknesses. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. There's no perfect quarterback. Tom Brady wasn't perfect, as good as he was. Patrick Mahomes is not perfect, as good as he is. So like, you gotta, like, I don't know. It just, and everybody, and a WIP put out the midday show today put out do we owe Kevin Patullo an apology? Hell no. Like, Kevin Patullo sucked. And, again, you have your receivers running hitches 89% of the game, and you're not able to make adjustments. And everybody's saying that, or somebody claiming that Jalen's the one that called that 4 verts play on 4th down against the Niners in the playoff game. If you saw the video, he looked dumbfounded. If you remember during the timeout, I highly doubt he's the one that called that. I'm telling you, somebody who's not on the coaching staff, somebody that's not in the building, whatever, is probably the person that spouted that trying to save their own career.
Yeah, somebody posted a picture of all of them together and said, of all the people in this circle, Patullo might have been the one who said it, and then they circle these 2 other random guys. I couldn't tell. It was a grainy picture, so I don't know who exactly it was, but he's like, I bet you one of these 2 guys is a source, because I don't know who it was. They probably may have went out the building with Kevin Patullo, but I agree with you. Like, the way that the Eagles won was boring. There was a reason that, the tush push was part of a ban discussion in the 2025 offseason. It wasn't in the 2026 offseason at all. It wasn't even brought up as an idea to ban it or to consider removing it from the game. So people just didn't like, how we won the games. It was bully football. It was old-fashioned, run it down their throat. The more physical team wins. And in those cases, they're not the most exciting football games. And that's just the reality of it. And a lot of people, it rubbed them the wrong way that that's how they won. And then people felt like, Jalen Hurts won it on the backs of Saquon Barkley or the offensive line or, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, when it came down to it, in that Super Bowl game, he outperformed Patrick Mahomes through the air. We're not talking about on the ground. He outperformed Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes.
2 Super Bowls.
2 Super Bowls, but that one specifically where we ran our way to the Super Bowl or bullied our way to the Super Bowl essentially, we ended up beating him on the ground and through the airs. I mean, at the end of the day, it's frustrating. It's annoying. Things started to die down on the A.J. Brown front. The question was obviously posed to everyone as part of the Patriots organization, everyone part of the Eagles organization, to no surprise at all. And it was starting to die. You were hearing the same thing. Of course, Mike Vrabel was saying, of course we want him here. And then, of course, you had Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni saying he's a Philadelphia Eagle. He's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle until further notice. You had both sides saying exactly what you wanted to hear. It was boring, nothing new. So, of course, through all this, I'm not I'm not saying the sources weren't right. I'm not saying things are completely inaccurate or the reporting is completely inaccurate. What I am going to say on that front is, how long was Tim McManus holding on to this story? Because you always have to wonder with these reporters, how long have they been holding on to this story? Was this like he got this fresh off of the San Francisco 49er playoff loss where we were eliminated from the playoffs, and he was just waiting, and when things died down, he was like, a perfect time, and this was the time to put it out there. Not saying he did it, not saying he's being dirty, just saying. And a lot of people have said, about anonymous sources and the timing of this article and everything. You have to take it with a grain of salt. Not everything is 100% accurate, because there's a lot of people, especially Patriots fans. I've seen a lot of Patriots fans on X who are like, this is why AJ wants out. This is why he shouldn't be in Philadelphia, blah, blah, blah. There is no article that is 100% accurate start to finish. It's the reality of it, especially when you're using anonymous sources. If they don't want to put their name to it, they know that there's another side to the story. They may have been in the same room as somebody else who probably has a completely different perspective, and they don't want to be proven wrong or spoken ill of because, oh, you heard it like this, but this is how it actually went down. So it's important that you take these things with a complete grain of salt and not just accept that just because Tim McManus has been on the beat for a decade or more, that he and his sources are 100% accurate without any fault.
And then the report today by McClain saying the Eagles are not going to give Jalen a contract extension. That makes sense. It does make sense. I mean, it also makes sense to give him a contract extension because it helps out with the salary cap. It would lower his cap hit and whatnot. I want nothing more than the Eagles to give him a salary cap just to prove these idiots wrong. The last thing I'll say about this is, the Eagles beat reporters, the radio stations in town and whatnot, nobody wants the Eagles to be a bad football team more than these people. They want something to complain about. Somebody was saying, I was listening to WIP yesterday, and they were saying, Jeffrey Lurie wants a passing game. Like he doesn't like when you're a prime. You know what Jeffrey Lurie wants? To win Super Bowls. And he has 2 of them now. Jalen was part of one of them. If Jalen can continue to lead you to winning Super Bowls, I don't think he's going to care how it happens. So that's the thing that irks me. Like, are you tired? Do you want to be the Cleveland Browns? Do you want to be irrelevant? Do you want to be losers for decades upon decades? No. Does it matter how you win a championship? It should not matter how you win a championship. That's the thing that bothers the hell out of me.
No, I agree. You think that for 2 seconds, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are giving back the Super Bowls that were tied to Spygate or Deflategate or anything? Absolutely not, because, that was arguably cheating, so not as comparable. But if you win by being the number 1 rushing offense and the second-ranked passing offense, are you going to give back the Super Bowl because you ranked so poorly on one side of the offensive coin? Absolutely not. That's how it is. And I've seen a lot of people today, after they've kind of, soaked in it for 24, 48 hours. They said the Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia in general, has one of the most active fan bases. You get clicks for almost anything. You could be nobody with 1 follower and you say the right thing on X and you could end up with 1,000 followers and, an X post that has 1 million engagements with it. Like, that's literally just this is Philadelphia. We are a passionate fan base. We love our sports teams. Philadelphia Eagles above all, on a different tier from the other 3 major sports teams in Philadelphia. And you're going to get clicks. You're going to get attention. You're going to get, that 50% of the fan base who's completely irrational, and just goes right off the cliff with whatever's said, and then you're going to get the other 50% who's semi-rational and kind of takes it all in and puts their opinion forward. And then you also got a lot of these people who do podcasts and who write, who aren't necessarily, beat writers and famous people who have their own opinions and perspectives as well. There's just been so much different. I've seen every side from, all the way to the left, all the way to the right, regarding this Jalen Hurts article. The people who have said, I'm right, I've always been right, Jalen Hurts sucks, to the other side that are completely defending Jalen Hurts and think everything about this article is completely inaccurate. This is Philadelphia. This is Philadelphia sports. This is a Philadelphia fan base. So you know that there's always going to be articles out there. Diana Rossini picks on the Eagles for a reason. It gets them clicks. They know where to go to get the clicks and to keep the activity coming towards whoever pays their bills.
Yeah, and speaking, Diana Rossini, I don't know if she's been right yet on an Eagles thing that she's put out there. And I remember I saw a tweet she put out in 2022 saying that, I might have mentioned this our last show, saying that AJ Brown was close to signing an extension with Tennessee, and then 2 weeks later he got traded. So she knows nothing. I don't care what anybody says.
Remember when the Jalen Waddle trade happened, somebody posted tweets about AJ Brown this season, X amount, tweets about Jalen Waddle this season, 1. Like, if you really are connected in the league, you're going to catch some of this stuff too. You're not just going to catch wind of AJ Brown over and over and over again. It just means you have the same sources who are speculating the same stuff over and over and giving you no new information, which is what we've gotten from the AJ Brown situation.
Yep, and like you said, the Eagles are going to be the center of attention. Doesn't matter who's playing, the Phillies, the Flyers, the crappy Sixers. It doesn't matter who's playing. The Eagles are always going to be number one in this town. All right, we'll move away from that now. And who knows? And as Adam Exploit says, Diana Rossini's husband and his family are lifelong Eagles fans. Yes, they are. She was telling the story because she won Eagles Insider of the Year for not being right somehow on the afternoon show on WIP.
Yeah, but remember the radio station you just said connecting her with the best.
Yeah, speaking of, because I know Adam said something about Spike Dope Jr. The fact that they let go somebody talented like Devin Caney, but still have the likes of Spike Eskin and James Seltzer and SP, get rid of them people. Don't get rid of somebody who's actually talented. And Devin Caney, that really irked me. All right, we're gonna not ignore this, but stop talking about this for now. And who knows what happens in the next couple of weeks. As we get into the draft, if we have to talk about this or the AJ thing or something else, we will. But I'm trying not to put any more stock into it because I'll believe anything when I see it.
Especially AJ Brown, we've stood by
he's not going anywhere.
We've stood by we're a better team with him, and we've also stood by if anything's going to happen, it wasn't going to be until June anyway. So there's been a lot of wasted time in reporting and discussions on the AJ Brown front. Just saying.
All right, so the Eagles have added a number of players since the last time we spoke, and I think it was Reek Woolen and Johnny Munt and Grant Calcaterra came back. Obviously, the Jordan Davis extension were the primary moves made the last time we were on. They have made some moves. They signed Hollywood Brown, who happens to have the same agent as AJ Brown, by the way. They traded for Andy Dalton, so that's interesting. We'll talk about the backup quarterback position. They signed Arnold Ebiketie, who went to Penn State and Temple, is from the area. He said he became an Eagles fan in 2017 when we beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. They re-signed Marcus Epps and signed safety J.T. Gray on the same day. Gray is more of a special teams guy. They signed Jonathan Jones, the cornerback. He played with Washington last year, if I'm not mistaken. They signed Chandler Martin, who's to a 2-year deal a couple days ago. He was with the Ravens coming off of an injury. They signed A.J. Brown's best friend now, I guess we can say, and Elijah Moore, the receiver. So the Eagles, we know that the Eagles lost Jahan Dotson. We don't know what's Again, I'm going on the premise that A.J. Brown's going to be here, but you never know. We don't know what's going to happen with Brown, but they're kind of replenished on 1-year deals. Obviously, the receiver room, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore to go along with they still have Johnny Wilson and whatnot. So they're just kind of put bodies in there. They signed Damian Pierce, the running back, and I'm intrigued by that one. Connor, when that happened, I said he's replacing Will Shipley. You mentioned that's the A.J. Dillon replacement. No, that's the Will Shipley replacement. A.J. Dillon did nothing. I think he's going to be replacing Will Shipley. I don't think they're too fond of him. They signed Stone Smart, what a name, the tight end. And they signed out the edge rusher Joe Tyron Shoyinka, a former first-round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that was an intriguing pick. And they re-signed Fred Johnson. And somebody had mentioned the guy from Green Bay as potentially being a swing tackle. And I said if they were going to bring somebody in, it would be Fred Johnson. They re-signed Dallas Goedert. I don't think Dallas Goedert had been re-signed the last time, so that was big bringing Goedert back. I know I just threw a bunch of names out there, Connor. You want to start wherever you want to start when it comes to the the guys the Eagles signed and or brought back?
First of all, I agree with you. We've been very strong on the A.J. Brown front. A.J. Brown's going to be back. And like Adam Schefter said, he didn't think there was anything to do with A.J. Brown necessarily directly that caused them to want Elijah Moore. And when Howie Roseman was questioned about it, Howie Roseman said, we're looking for compliments to the people we already have on the roster, which is true. Elijah Moore and Hollywood Brown are definitely unique in what they bring to the roster versus what A.J. Brown is, what Darius Cooper is, what Devontae Smith is. They're both very, very different.
While he's getting a little older, he has the speed that these other receivers don't have. He can be the more professional Quez Watkins.
And I feel like we really lacked that last season. We didn't really have that speedster. I mean, they brought Quez Watkins back and there kind of was this feeling that they were going to try and insert him to be the speed receiver. But if all you're doing is running hitches on 75% of plays, you don't need a speed receiver. So I think that bringing in Hollywood Brown kind of changes things up. You have Devontae Smith on one side, you'll have Hollywood Brown on the other side, and then on the inside you have A.J. Brown, who can, yards after the catch beast, slant beast, the type of guy who can get the ball in his hands and he's going to create for you. And then obviously Devontae Smith, like some of them can be interchangeably inside out. So, I mean, a wide receiver, I like the moves. They're good moves. You needed to fill the voids. I think I like Hollywood Brown over Jahan Dotson. I think he can bring more to the game than Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson, he was a bit of a smaller guy. He wasn't necessarily going to be a guy who could line up opposite Devontae Smith and be a really strong outside wide receiver. He was a great route runner, but now you have that in Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, one of his calling cards is that he's a really good route runner. So Elijah Moore feels like the Jahan Dotson replacement, whereas Marquise Brown feels like the more or less missing piece from the wide receiving room that we didn't necessarily have last season, a unique capability that we didn't really have last season. Arnold, Adebike, whatever we want to call it, like whatever has been done in the edge room was just to replace the last two one-year contracts in Azeez Ojulari and Joshua Uche. And it's just going to be which one of these guys can take advantage of an opportunity if given. Joshua Uche was really good when given the opportunity. But obviously he ended up going off, getting a deal that was more expensive than the deals we ended up giving out to Joe Tryon and Arnold Abikidi. So, I mean, those are essentially replaced, like Abikidi and Tryon are athletes, high draft capital invested in them. They're your typical Howie Roseman edge rusher signing. Let's just face it. But one of the things I put up a mock draft for fun. I don't put up mock drafts like 20 weeks out. I just start, a month out from the draft and drop a few mocks and opinions on the draft. And I put one out today and I had an edge being picked with the last pick by the Eagles. And basically my perspective on that is Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt excelled when there was a veteran in the building. I think Howie Roseman wants to make the splash via the trade versus the free agent or the draft market at the edge position. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know who. I still think Jonathan Greenard seems to be the one that would be at the top of the list, but he wants a new contract, which I think is the stalling point for the Eagles. They'd rather just pick him up, let him play out the year and see what they got in him before giving him an extension, whereas he wants to be traded and extended. And you're giving up, it appears they would like third roundish capital, which is significant capital, to then throw an extension on top of that. So I think that Howie wants to make his big hit at the edge position via the trade market. When it happens, we'll see. But I don't think that we're looking at a first round edge rusher being drafted this season. Fred Johnson.
I'm not so sure about that. Obviously, it depends on how the board falls. But if the other Miami edge rusher drops, not Ruben Bain, the other one, I can't remember his name.
Oh, yes.
He could potentially be a guy
was it Mansour? I've seen him being mock drafted to the Eagles and fallen now. So
yeah, so I would not put I think it's 50-50 between offensive and defensive line in the first round. Obviously, depending on how the board falls. But yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't say it's a definite that the Eagles aren't going to go pass rusher in the first round. I think it could very well happen, unless they trade for Myles Garrett before the draft. Anything's possible.
Keem Mesidor is the name that both of us are looking for. I agree. I think it would take somebody fallen. I don't think he's trading up for an edge. I don't think he's doing any type of movement that would land him an edge. But if, like Jahad Campbell, that pick fell in his lap, he's obviously not going to pass on a guy like Akeem Mesidor or something if the opportunity presents itself. Fred Johnson, I mean, there's probably a couple guys in the room who could be future swing tackles, but right now we don't know what we have, and we don't know what. One of the big things with this offensive line, we don't know what we're going to ultimately end up getting, what Sean Mannion wants in an offensive lineman. Like, we know it's probably going to be different and more unique than what we were looking for in a Nick Sirianni offensive lineman, because their offenses are completely different. And there's a reason they went with Sean Mannion, because they wanted to steer away from the offense that has become stale and predictable within the NFL. So Fred Johnson was just a good bring back. He's cheap. He clearly tests, because it happened like 2 weeks into free agency. It ended up clearly being that there was no market for him as a starter again, and he decided his best option was to come back, and he filled in incredibly for Lane Johnson, who is back, but injuries happen with Lane Johnson quite a bit. His health is a major question mark, so having a sure thing swing tackle there is definitely a major plus. Dameon Pierce, yeah, it feels... I can't imagine beyond Tank Bigsby and Saquon Barkley that they're keeping any more than 3 running backs. So I feel like Dameon Pierce has kind of a lane to get in that third role and taking that job.
And he can return kicks, because he did that in Houston.
And Chandler Martin, I think, is an underrated pickup. I mean, if you look at his film from college, he looks and has the feel of a Nakobe Dean from the run stuffer, fill the gap, blitz type of linebacker, like a discount Nakobe Dean. And he was, at least for the 2 weeks that he played in Baltimore, an elite special team player. He led the Baltimore Ravens with 5 tackles over 2 weeks before tearing his ACL. So he won't be back. We won't really get a good look at Martin until probably August, more closer to the training camp than anything. So, but none of these are game-changing moves.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. Marina says that Mesidor doesn't fit. He cannot play outside linebacker and edge. Well, that might be true. The one thing that is hard for the Eagles when it comes to drafting defensive players this year, who's the defensive coordinator next year? How long is Fangio here? If Fangio's not here, this year, if he retires after this year, is Jim Schwartz our defensive coordinator next year? Is Clint Hurt our defensive coordinator next year? Because if it's Schwartz, our defensive system's going to change, because he's not a 3-4 guy. He's a 4-3 wide 9 type of guy. So that is the hardest part for Howie when it comes to drafting, defensive players this year, at least on the defensive line, and even potentially linebackers. We know that we have Bond and we have Campbell. If Schwartz is the defensive coordinator next year, you need 3 linebackers. And we know that Trotter can potentially play. Maybe Smile Munden. Maybe they go and try to draft Josiah Trotter, get another Trotter in here. Who knows? But this is what makes this draft season difficult, at least on the defensive side of the ball. I think besides safety, because I think safety is one of our big needs. At corner, I think we're set. It doesn't matter what system. Our cornerbacks are good. Quignon and Cooper will be able to do whatever they need to do in whatever system. And even if the Eagles were able to bring back Reek, if he had a good year after this year, he'd be good too. So that's the biggest thing is who's the defensive coordinator in 2027. And I hate to bypass 2026. But, they had to convince Fangio to come back 2 or 3 times already. If this is the swan song of Fangio, that puts it how do you draft defensive players next year or in the draft this year? Because you don't know what defense you're going to be, what defensive scheme you're going to be in next year.
Absolutely. You have to find someone who's got the versatility to have a role in a 3-4 defense and the versatility to have a role in a 4-3, wide 9 defensive circumstance. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But Howie does have to think forward in that way to, can they work in this system and can they work in a Schwartz system? The good thing is they've had Schwartz in the building before. So it's not like you need to speculate.
They've also changed the defense over big time since in the 5 or 6 years, however many years it's been since he's been in the building. As Marina says, you'd have to change completely. Now, I don't know if you have to completely rebuild it. I think Jalen Carter can play in any defense. I think Jordan Davis, you can put him in there too. You might need some edge rushers. I think Bond can play in a 4-3. I think Campbell can play in a 4-3. And the corners, I think, would be fine. I don't know if you would have to completely rebuild it. You would have to definitely get some edge rushers. We need safeties as it is, but I don't know if the safety responsibilities change if you go from a 3-4 to a 4-3.
Yeah, the perspective of what you need from an interior defensive line would definitely change. Like, then the question becomes, okay, you got paid Jalen Carter and Moro Jomo's coming up on a contract and going to get paid. You got to start to question, who do you keep? Because you're obviously not going to pay big on 3 interior defensive linemen with a 4-3 defense. So there is some things to consider and perspective to look at there. But for now, we look ahead to this year, and, you know, that's Howie's job, is to figure out what's he going to do in the draft. And he's probably going to look, if he's drafting defensively, at guys who have the versatility to be 3-4, 4-3, and what they bring to both of those types of defenses. Because at the end of the day, Marina Sands, it's to me, they just paid Jordan Davis, by the way. He's not going anywhere. They literally just paid him. He'll be here regardless of who the defensive coordinator is next year. Yeah, she says Smith, Hunt, and Davis are gone. I think Smith and Hunt could play in a wide 9 concept. I think they could play better in that concept because they come from further out and they can use their speed. They can use different elements of their game that may be why they're not so effective in a 3-4. It's tough to say, and we'll see where things go. But yeah, Jordan Davis is going nowhere. I think the question becomes, what do you do with Jalen Carter or Moro Jomo? Because you probably have to let one of those guys go because neither of them can kick out.
Anywhere. Carter's not.
I don't think Carter's going anywhere either, but you're not going to keep both of those guys is more or less a reality in a 4-3 scheme versus a 3-4 scheme. But I mean, you're going to look for, and a lot of people who play in a 3-4 scheme can play in a 4-3 scheme. It's just the what your role is in your position changes, but it doesn't mean what you were doing in a 3-4 makes you completely ineffective and inept in a 4-3 role. It's not that way. So a lot of these guys, like a lot of these really elite talent guys like Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Andrew Makuba, Jordan Davis, they'll find roles and opportunities within a 4-3 just as much as they did the 3-4 of Vic Fangio.
Yeah, definitely. Just so we wanted to kind of our top 3 still positions of need that the Eagles have going into draft season. I'm going with 3. You can go 5 if you want, but safety is number 1. Andrew Makuba is going to probably be a starter. And I guess as of right now, it would be Marcus Epps. We did trade Sidney Brown to the Falcons. I don't know if we mentioned that.
You know you need fiber for a healthy gut, but do you actually know how to get it? Quaker's been serving up fiber since 1877, with over 100 great-tasting, good source of fiber options to choose from. Whether you like old-fashioned oats, instant oatmeal, granola, or oatmeal squares, Quaker makes it delicious. So good. Get your fiber with Quaker. Shop Quaker's good source of fiber products at a store near you.
LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't predict the future, but it can help you feel confident about future hires. Because Hiring Pro combines real-time insights and candidate data from the LinkedIn network with the criteria you've set for your role to deliver you a list of top-fit candidates. Businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Oh, yeah, no, we
in
didn't.
the last episode, but he's gone finally. He was terrible. Like, obviously my dream pick would be Caleb Downs, but he's not going to get out of the top 10. I would love if the Eagles were able to trade up to get Caleb Downs. Then you have the safety from Oregon and the safety from Toledo. I don't know if they're first round picks, but depending on, needs, they could potentially go in the first round. So that the Eagles are definitely going to look safety probably day 2, if not the first round, but definitely day 2. They need an edge rusher. Obviously, we have Smith and Hunt, and then a bunch of guys that were just signed into 1-year deals, the Uches of the world. And then my number 3 is going to be offensive tackle. And that's because, Lane Johnson's back. Jordan Mailata's back. And the one thing Lane Johnson did say about the scheme, the system, the offensive system that we're going to play is it's not going to be a lot, in the previous system is a lot of, he was on him and Jordan Mailata on an island, one-on-one. We were lucky that they were very good at that when they were healthy. He won't have to work. He won't do that as much in this new system. He might have help, and they might, he might get a defensive end that runs upfield and they just run right under him and he's not going to have to block, on an island on long periods of time. But we don't know how much longer he's going to play for. And this could be his last year. He could play for another 2-3 years. You never know. But you want to have somebody that is ready, to be the heir apparent to Lane Johnson, and who also might potentially be able to, play right guard this year in the interim. That's why I think, offensive line is probably where the Eagles are going to go in the first round.
No, I agree with you. I wrote down 5, but to talk to my top 3, number 1 was right tackle. I agree. I hate that we got this far down the line. And I think, reality really set in with the need at right tackle when Lane Johnson went down and he wasn't even able to come back for that playoff game or anything. You knew the injury was more serious than he was letting on, and maybe it's becoming a bit harder to play through these injuries like he used to. He's looked good in the offseason workout videos that he's been sharing and stuff, which is a good thing. He's going to come back. Hopefully obviously you have to expect he's had the time to properly heal and he'll come back at near 100%. But a lot of people, when I talk about Lane Johnson on X, say, well, what about Cameron Williams? Well, Cameron Williams was a developmental tackle who was drafted more for the Sirianni system. Is Sean Mannion going to be able to find a way to incorporate Cameron Williams into this system where, like you said, they're not on an island necessarily, but they have to be able to move? This is going to be like this, think the Kyle Shanahan system. This is going to be, zone running, getting you moving up to the next level and stuff. Can Cameron Williams do that to a degree effectively enough to become a starting right tackle in this league? He was drafted in the 6th round. So not many 6th round guys end up coming up and being, especially like we talked about Jordan Mailata. He was an undrafted free agent, but Jeff Stowland we knew what we were getting with Jeff Stowland as an absolutely elite offensive line coach. Are we necessarily getting the same thing from who's stepping into the offensive line coach in the Sean Mannion offensive role this time? Here, we got Hinton, Williams, and Pierce are the replacements. Any OT drafted this year will not play for 2 years. Landon will be replaced before Steen, who will be re-signed. It's interesting because we just don't know what Mannion sees. Does he see Hinton? I see Hinton as a future swing tackle. But can Cameron Williams step up and be the future starting right tackle of the future? It'll be interesting to see, but I have right tackle as the biggest need. And like you said, they can move into right guard. They can compete with Tyler Steen and Cam Jurgens or whoever else is going to compete for that, Willie Lampkin, whoever's competing for that interior offensive line right guard role. But I think that's the biggest need. I hate that it got this far. And as Marina Sands kind of points out, we have a lot of people in the building, but a lot of these people, can they fit what Sean Mannion wants to do? And can they become starters at the NFL level? That's going to be the biggest question. But I don't think that Howie's going into this draft thinking, I'm comfortable with what I have at the tackle position. There's a reason that it's been one of the more mocked positions to them in the first round of the draft. My second need was edge. This isn't a great edge class after the top of it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like we kind of spoke to earlier in the episode, will there be an edge that falls and Howie just has to take the shot at him? Otherwise, there's probably going to be a lot of reaching that would have to be done at the edge position, or you're getting an edge who is not going to step in and just really support Hunt and Smith the same way as Jalen Phillips did stepping into the role. That's why I still stand by. I think the biggest splash for Howie Roseman is ultimately going to be at the edge position, is going to be via the trade market later on in the postseason, as we see how teams draft and how things fall after the draft. That's when Howie does a second wave of moves, and we sometimes see a big trade by Howie Roseman. And my third need was actually tight end. Safety was fourth for me. I know that you have it high up on the chart. And, if you have Jim Schwartz come into the mix, you probably need to bump safety up a couple notches to closer to where you have it. But I think the versatility with Michael Carter, the thought of Cooper DeJean moving back periodically, Marcus Epps coming back, and the stability that he brought when Makuba went down last year, I think they have guys in the building that they're more than happy to go and run with. In my recent mock draft, I had them taking Jalen Kilgore in the third round. So, I think they're going to draft a safety. I just don't know if it's going to be high enough that it's going to be prioritized to the same degree as tight end, where the majority of our tight ends are on one-year contract. Their contracts are practice squad guys. So there is absolutely nothing to stop them, and there shouldn't be anything stopping them from attacking the tight end position via the draft. I had them in my latest mock doing it twice. I feel like you need to prepare for the future and get ready for life after a lot of these guys, because most of this tight end room, I wouldn't be surprised if they're not back again next year, because they're on those one-year contracts. There's prove-it deals. If they prove it and they get overpaid, then Howie's not bringing them back. If they don't prove themselves enough, is Howie going to pay them on a cheap one-year contract again? I don't know. We'll see. Marina Sands says safety is top need. Trade up for Thieneman. We'll see. I don't know if Howie's going to trade up. It's going to be interesting to see how this first round starts to fall. I think it's going to get really interesting outside of the top 10, because a lot of people have more or less said that this isn't a great draft class of the blue chip prospects. Most people only have 15 to 20 at the most, or really like high end prospects only have 15 to 20. Like when people talk about first round grades that they had on people, most people didn't even have 32 first round grades on players. So it'll be interesting to see what Howie does and how things fall.
So tight end is probably my fourth, but as Adam Exploit says, he likes Kenyon Sadiq. I like Sadiq too. I just think he's going to go too high. I do think he's going to go in the top 15. But if he were to drop, if he got down to like 18, 19, 20, it wouldn't shock me if Howie decided to trade up for him, if he thought that was a big enough need, which obviously it is. They should have found a replacement for Goddard 4 years ago, and just didn't. So they've kind of been forced into bringing Goddard back. But I think Sadiq would be great. Him, Eli Stovers. Then there's tight ends in the back end. Sam Roush from Stanford. Like there are tight ends like that you could get later on too, that not necessarily be your like legit number one right now, but could kind of turn into somebody in like 2 or 3 years that could be a number one tight end. We obviously don't have that on the roster right now behind Goddard.
I agree with Marina Sands on the Sadiq front. Sadiq is not, I don't know if his blocking's ever going to get there. Like you can see in his build and in his frame, he can be as competitive a blocker as he wants to be, but I don't know if he's actually going to, I don't think he's to the degree that he's a wide receiver, but more teams are moving, especially when you think about the Sean Mannion offense. More teams are moving to having two tight ends on the field and doing very different roles. Kenyon Sadiq feels like the type of guy who would fit that like tight end pass catch and roll, while you have another tight end who's more exclusively the inline guy who does the blocking and stuff. That's why I think that he, if you draft Sadiq, you can't just hold at one tight end. I think that you're going to ultimately end up having to take another tight end, or usually have a blocking tight end like Johnny Mund, who's going to have to be on the roster to make up for the deficiencies in Sadiq's game from a blocking standpoint.
Yeah, we'll see what they decide to do. And there are tight ends out there that could potentially be traded. Michael Mayer from the Raiders. Who knows what Howie's going to do? They obviously do have to bring in some young blood at that position. They have more quantity. They have more quantity than quality at the tight end position. And that's something we talked about with the corners like years ago. We always talked about how they had so many guys here, James Bradbury and Eli Ricks and Josh Jobe. Now Josh Jobe has turned into a good corner for Seattle, but like there was a point in time they had 7, 8 corners here, and it just none of them could really play. Now they have guys that can play. They just have to do the same at the tight end position.
I agree, and I think that's kind of what Howie's doing at the tight end position. He's just throwing a bunch of stuff at it, seeing what's going to stick, and they're probably going to end up keeping 3 on roster. They might even go as far as keeping 4, but like a guy like Stone Smart doesn't feel like he's ultimately going to make the roster unless he completely blows up in the preseason. But like a guy like Johnny Munn feels like he's going to ultimately end up making the roster, and Howie kind of showed it in the fact that he guaranteed half of his contract. So Johnny Munn's contract is a $1.5 million contract, and he guaranteed $750,000 of it. Whereas Stone Smart, it's a $1.29 million contract, and he guaranteed $225,000 of it. You know, money talks. Goddard and Mund are going to be on the roster. Who else is going to be on the roster? He's just throwing bodies at it, and he's going to see what ultimately sticks, who can carve out a role on the special teams front. And obviously, if they draft, you know, a tight end high, he's automatically in. But I mean, anything day 3 from if they draft at the tight end, I don't know if that would be even a lock to make the roster. But I mean, I have them going tight end twice. I think that they should go tight end twice and keep those guys around. You keep Mund, you keep Goddard, and you keep the 2 guys that you draft. And if one of these guys carves out a role, EJ Jenkins is bound to be back on our practice squad. Cam Latu probably bound to be back on our practice squad if he doesn't make the rosters. I mean, but you do have to look ahead to the future. And right now, the future's bleak at the tight end position for the Eagles. Whereas at least at the safety position, you have Makuba, who's a bright spot. But Ken Makuba, I mean, Sidney Brown was the reason for his injury. Makuba he's not injury prone in any way. That injury strictly came from the bonehead play of Sidney Brown. But, you know, if you have Makuba as someone you can trust to play 98, 99% of 98 to 100% of snaps, suddenly safety doesn't become as big of a need as some people may be thinking.
We are 3 weeks from tonight away from the first round of the NFL draft starting. So that means over the course of the next couple of weeks, we get mock draft season. Connor and I will both do our own Eagles only mock draft, and then we will do a first round mock draft, and we'll do it live on our show, and somebody will go first, second, so forth, kind of draft as if we were that team. So looking forward to that. I think it's safe to say Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall, to the Raiders, even though they did, as Adam's ex-boy said, sign Kirk Cousins today, which interesting.
I thought that was weird too, because Cousins when they drafted,
well, they did say, somebody from the Raiders said that they don't necessarily want to start a rookie. So it wouldn't shock me if Cousins starts the first month and a half of the season.
Yeah, and it was a weird signing because I remember when Michael Penix was drafted, Kirk Cousins didn't want to be a mentor. He didn't really want to help Michael Penix.
He knows the Raiders are taking Mendoza. He didn't know that they were taking Penix.
Yeah, and of course, he's getting paid $10 million, I think, by the Atlanta Falcons. He's more than happy to help somebody along now, more open to it than he would have been at the time with Atlanta when they were paying him like he should have been their starter. So, I mean, interesting. We'll see how it goes.
So, and draft season's always fun. And then next month, the schedule comes out. So looking forward to when I'm going to be going to Tennessee to see the Eagles play the Titans. He won't mock our draft too much. Nice. But yeah, so next week we're going to do our Eagles only mock draft, if I'm not mistaken. And then the week after we will do our first round mock draft. Obviously, any news happens over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll obviously jump on, even if it's for a quick show to kind of give our thoughts on it, whether it be a signing or an extension, whether it be a trade, whatever. But yeah, so a lot of moves by the Eagles, a lot of news when it comes to the Eagles, a lot of annoying news, but it's good to be, we're getting into the thick of it. You know, free agency is dying down a little bit, and we get to get into draft season, which is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 3 weeks from tonight.
We may even, after, we do Eagles only mock, first round mock reaction, we might even do, because I know we did it last offseason, a way too early 53-man roster prediction, looking at it from how things land, but we'll see.
We did mention it, but I didn't really expand on it. Andy Dalton, that trade. Well, so the Panthers are paying some of it, so he technically could be the third quarterback. I don't know if Tanner McKee gets traded, and I don't know if why do you think they traded for Andy Dalton?
Well, I do think they're going to draft a quarterback In the mock I did today, I had Taylor Green going to them, but he's starting to gain some steam. So I don't know if he's necessarily going to land where but then again, there's people who probably think the Eagles are going to take a QB in round 3, and there's some who think they might wait till the last pick or, day 3, later in day 3 to do it. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, but they very rarely enter the offseason without 4 quarterbacks. So I was bound to believe they were going to make multiple moves when we went into the offseason with just Tanner McKee and Jalen Hurts. And it's not an indictment on Jalen Hurts, but it does open up, like you said, the possibility of moving on from Tanner McKee. So I think having Dalton in the building, drafting a quarterback, if the right offer lands on the table for Howie, he's way more open to a McKee trade than I think an A.J. Brown trade, for example, at this very moment in time. So I do think it really, the more QBs on roster, the more comfortable Howie Roseman is with moving on. Like, I think he'd be fine with, someone comes forward, offers a late 2 or early 3 for Tanner McKee. He probably pulls the trigger all day, every day. And he'd be fine with Andy Dalton as the 2 and drafting someone, signing a UDFA, and, getting some other people in the building to battle it out for the QB3 spot. That's a more likely scenario. If they don't trade McKee, then Dalton more likely becomes the QB, the emergency QB3. I mean, they're only paying him $1.5 million. The trade made a lot more sense. What was it, like 2 weeks later after the trade, the news came out that the Panthers ate $2.5 million of his cap as a bonus and as dead cap. So, I mean, that was kind of weird. Usually that comes out a bit earlier, but it made a lot more sense when that finally came out.
Yeah, it was an interesting trade to say the least, to bring Andy Dalton here. I don't know if he's ever played in a Shanahan offense, thinking. So, like, if he did play in that type of offense, I would understand, okay, you bring him here and kind of help, teach the offense, but I don't think he has. So that's what made it interesting. All right. Thank you.
Marina Sands says get a 4th. I think you got to get more than a 4th. This QB class is bad. Like, there's going to be teams that, of course, like, there's guys like Taylor Green out there who are very elite athletes, but super inconsistent. And then you could go and end up with the Miami guy who was fairly productive. Carson Beck, but there's a lot of things that you're missing for him to become a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Ty Simpson is QB2, and we don't even know if he's going to be drafted
15
in the first
games.
we don't even know he'll be drafted in the first round. I mean, he could be, because quarterbacks usually get overdrafted, but I mean, he could be a Steeler. Who knows? Like, they don't have a quarterback right now. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to go back, but you never know. All right. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. We will be back next week with our Eagles only mock draft. I don't know if we have a day for that yet, but we will be sure to put that on our Twitter. And as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.